and welcome back to day 7 of Survivor 46 and 46. I just finished watching Survivor Pearl Islands, where Sandra has won for the first time. Today we are joined by Jake from Tribe of Nerds and John from The Specialists to discuss everything that we can remember about Pearl Islands, everything that, because of what's happening tomorrow. I'm hoping that we can have one last, hoorah before my life sucks for the next 12-ish hours going into tomorrow, where that Rupert fatigue really kicks in. So we'll start. So, Jake, I actually don't know how old you are. I probably should ask before we went live. How old are you?
28.
Okay, so
yeah,
I'll start with John, because I would assume that John would have been alive and coherent when this season aired. What were your initial thoughts on the season when you first watched back then, and what has your thought process been about the season as the years have progressed?
Pearl Islands is the first season of Survivor I ever watched, back when it first aired in 2003, and immediately, and I got it again while rewatching it yesterday. As soon as that premiere starts and you get that first 15 minutes, it's peak reality TV at that point. Survivor knows exactly what it's doing, and I was enamored as a child. It's why I still love Survivor today, 21 years later. It's why I still watch seasons over and over again. It's why I podcast about Survivor. It all comes back to Pearl Islands.
It's the first, in my opinion, the first great season of Survivor. I feel like we've had 5 good ones and Thailand, and then we get this one. And I feel like, once we get to our next great season, I think it still has a lot to live up to with Pearl Island. So, Jake, same question for you, but I'm assuming you didn't watch it live.
No.
So when you were first introduced to the season, did you already know what happened in it, or did you go in completely fresh?
I think I knew what happened in it because I think for some reason, I think Heroes vs. Villains was one of the first seasons I watched, and they spoiled that Sandra had been a previous winner beforehand. So I was already aware of it, but then going into it, I don't think I really knew Johnny Fairplay, but I knew Sandra and Rupert, and so going into it and watching Fairplay throughout the season for the first time was truly a crazy experience. And so, but I just showed this season to 2 of my college friends who had never seen Pearl Islands before, and I was so excited for them to get to the grandma lie. And one of my friends is he's like, I never would have done something like that ever.
And that's the thing about these, especially with Amazon and Pearl Islands, is we have the Jenna Heidi thing in Amazon, which is everyone remembers that, and then we have the Fair Play lie in this season, which somehow one-ups that scene. And I know everyone, back in the day was really clutching their pearls with how that went down. And now, I don't think anyone, I guess Tony did kind of do that in Cagayan, but for the most people, they lie about a lot of big things, which you've never gotten to that point. And I do agree with him that at a certain point, you should be able to lie about whatever you need to in order to get to the end. And I mean, it helped him win that challenge, and it potentially could have gotten him to the end. John, thoughts on, we're just getting the Fair Play thing out of the way now, because I actually want to talk about his actual gameplay later. What were your thoughts on the Great Lie? Is it something that you would have done? Did you understand why it was done?
Would I have done it? Now that I know it happens, and I don't think I could have possibly have conceived the idea of it, is what it comes down to. And that's what's so brilliant about the lie. It's taking the game of Survivor and taking it to the next level. There's a reason why this is often considered one of the most villainous moves in reality television history. There's a reason why it's on display in the Smithsonian, right? This is an iconic move that defines competition reality TV, and it is so genius. And this is the point where Survivor changes. We saw it starting to change in Amazon with the way that Rob was approaching the game. The way Fair Play approaches the game here is exactly how Survivor changes from being we're surviving on an island to we are playing a game for $1 million.
Jake, in that situation, would you be the Sandra or would you be the everyone else that it's like, no, we got to throw this for John? Sandra, like I love Sandra's mentality of, yeah, I don't really give a shit. Like
I love that Sandra's the only one that calls Fair Play out on his BS. Like, she's the only one to see through it, and then everybody else is just like, Lil's crying, and like everybody else is like, let's just throw this to Fair Play. It's like, I feel like in the moment, like, I'm not going to be the guy to call someone out who claims his grandmother just died on national television. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. But also, it's just funny, like, watching it, and you can see that Fair Play's buddy almost blows it. Like, he literally is like, Fair Play is to repeat to him, like, you know, how's grandma, like, because they had this planned out, and then you have the delivery of she died, dude. Like,
when it almost looked like Fair Play smirks as it happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I'm sure he's just trying to get a tear out or two, but especially with the benefit of hindsight, it looks like he's laughing in the situation. And I do think they kept it cool once they got past that initial thing, once he gets to sit down, is being comforted, and Jeff talks to him. But that's just one thing with this. Like, Fair Play was a great player this season. He has a confessional in like episode 2 or 3 where he talks about having, you know, he's got this 4-person alliance here. He's got this 5-person alliance here. He's got a final 2 this way, and he's got a final 2 this way. And then when Burton comes back, he's got a final 2 with him. And I think that if, you know, I believe that the way that he navigated the merge, there is a very strong potential that he could win if he is sitting at the end, because, you know, people are not going to know about that lie in particular. They're only going to know about game lies. So, John, both against Lil and against Sandra, do you think that Fair Play, you know, I mean, do you think it's more than 6-1? Do you think he even has a chance against either one of them? What are your thoughts?
I think there's definitely a chance he gets there. It's awkward because we're still in that era of Survivor where people on the jury don't fully respect the game that someone like Fair Play's playing in this instance, where there's a lot of, so like, you know, the hurt feelings and everything that go into jurors. But it feels like this is a moment where even when we just look at like the final or like the speeches in Final Tribal Council, it feels like they're more reflecting on the game. And there's a lot more conversation about the game. Is that because Lil has literally done what no one has done at this point and been voted out of the game and come back? Maybe. But at the same time, you're looking at 2 people and you're wondering, okay, what did you do in the game? So does someone who clearly was driving everything since the merge have a shot? Absolutely. Does that mean he would win hands down? I don't know, because Sandra was 1 vote away from a perfect game.
Yeah. And Jake, do you think that Fair Play is underrated? I know it's crazy to say that because Fair Play is one of these names that everyone talks about, but because of the grandma lie, I don't think everyone really looks at Johnny Fair Play as the player, especially in this season, outside of that one moment. So do you think that, you know, Fair Play is one of these underrated? Is very hard to say because, you know, of what he is, who he is in this community. But do you think that that's an accurate term, I guess?
Well, so I think Fair Play is interesting because, like, there's certainly a debate that he could have won Pearl Islands. I do think he beats Lil. I agree with that commenter. Like, I think it's up in the air. I think Sandra probably still pulls it out against Fair Play, but I think it's up in the air there. I feel like as far as Fair Play's strategy, I think what he's great at, and I talked about this with my friends on my podcast when we talked about Pearl Islands as a whole, and Fair Play is just really good at deflecting like things onto other people. Like, he deflects things onto Sean early on that gets Sean booted over him, which Rupert obviously should have taken Fair Play out over Sean, but thankfully he didn't, because then we would have had the dud that is Sean instead of Fair Play.
I won't bring that up yet because it hasn't happened at the reunion, but keep on going.
No, I think that's but like yeah, I mean, I think that's all I have to say, but like, Yeah, I think he is a good strategist. I think he understands the game, but I think it's just like up in the air whether Fair Play wins or not.
My favorite Fair Play had a lot of fun vote out confessionals, with the one for Sean where he's just like "fuck you" and just goes is amazing. The reason I was going to bring up Sean is because I think Sean, I believe he's the first person to ever bring up the edit and specifically how certain people are portrayed in the edit. And I just always assumed that he was alluding to Rupert because of everything that we have heard other people say about how the edit treats Rupert. I don't think it's happened yet in the reunion, but yeah, Sean was. If you can call Sean a dud, because, and we're going to get to this, I think this season, top to bottom, is probably the first season since, I don't know, maybe Australian Outback, that like you remember basically everyone. I mean, I feel like super fans can remember everyone from one to whatever. But like for the semi-casual, I feel like you can sit there and you say, "Oh yeah, Nicole. Like Nicole was the one that did this." Fun fact about Nicole that I noticed this time around: when the Outcasts win, Nicole flips off everyone, and it's not edited or anything.
Yeah.
And I had to rewind it a couple of times.
I did not notice this ever.
You just go back and watch when the Outcast when she just straight up flips them off, and it's not edited at all. I do not think Fair Play would own up to the grandma lie until after the show is over. I think that would be a horrible game move for him to say, "I lied about that."
Oh, right. Yeah. Plays that very well.
So this cast, outside of Johnny Fairplay, who are we liking? So going into the season, I know for me, especially at what I would have been like 12 years old, I was probably rooting for Tawana. I was probably rooting for Rupert because I was stupid and a kid. I was probably rooting for Savage at that point. And we'll talk all about Andrew Savage in a little bit. So who are some of the people that y'all were vibing with, in that first 15 minutes, in that first episode? Either one can go.
Well, I think like you said, like Rupert is literally edited to appeal to the mass populations watching the show at this point. And especially with the way he comes off, he kind of embodies the theme that they're going for in the season. So clearly the production wants you to root for Rupert, wants him to be the hero. I think in doing so, it also ups how villainous Johnny Fairplay is when he goes against Rupert. But so like Rupert is one of those people you're immediately watching. I think now as an adult, like Austin right off the bat, when he pulls out like 2 massive bottles of liquor, that's that's respectable. Yeah. I understand that, Austin. I think even Sandra, once you see Sandra talking Spanish in that village, you're just like, man, what an advantage this is for the Drake tribe. And you start rooting for her there. I think the Morgans almost feel like they have less people to root for. But like, I think you do kind of like cling on to Savage and everything like that. But and like Lil sticks out because she's in a scout uniform, right? Like it's they make a big deal out of it. But that being said, like all these characters they're still memorable despite the fact that you don't necessarily root for them.
Mm-hmm.
Jake?
Yeah, I mean, Rupert's a great character. Sandra's a great character. I think Andrew Savage is fascinating. Like, you think about, is he a good leader or is he, like, not a good leader? Because the Morgan tribe really struggles very early on and really only gets to, even things up because Drake throws away their momentum. And so, there's definitely the debate there. I always liked Burton. I thought that Burton was really interesting, and the fact that he's great at challenges, and the fact that he is definitely one of the biggest players of the season, and makes some interesting moves throughout. And I honestly, like, until him and Fairplay really destroy their games at the final 5, like, I really think that like he was setting himself up to be the good cop to Fairplay's bad cop, and like I honestly think that was a good strategy on his part. So I really liked it.
And I will go off of this comment. This is my favorite Rupert season. This is my favorite version of Rupert. I should say it like that. I guess I kind of like him in All Stars, except for when he almost kills Jerry. And then by the time we do get to Heroes versus Villains, I think that the Rupert character has kind of jumped the shark. But I do appreciate, the fact that he embraces the theme of the season of him being a pirate and everything that comes with that. The fact that he has confessionals where he is like, when I think Burton came to him to throw the challenge and he was like, oh, he would have been dead already. And it's like, all right, dude, you know this is not real, right? Like this is not real pirates. But it was cute. Rupert was a cute person for everyone to latch on to. And I think that's the main reason that he was able to come back for the next season and then 2 seasons after that. Burton, I found myself this time really rooting for Burton to the point where the Burton's boot episode, I thought it was Michelle's boot episode because I just don't remember Burton being the first Drake voted out. I thought it was Michelle first because of the food eating challenge. And Burton looks, this is going to sound so cheesy, but like Burton looks so cool with the immunity idol on him whenever he wins.
Yeah.
It's just something about, he has one of those faces whenever people talk about, the perfect face and the perfect whatever. It's going to sound like I have a crush on Burton. I don't, but like.
Why not?
Yeah, Burton was amazing. And I do feel like if he sits next to Fairplay, and I think I saw an interview where Fairplay even said like his only defense against Burton would have been, well, Burton got voted out. And I think that would have been a very accurate defense against going up against someone like Burton. Other characters, if we want to go down the list, I will stray away from bringing up Dara outside of the game, but I think Dara and Tina are a very fun secondary duo to Sandra and Krista. Which with Krista, we have to talk about the fish. Jake, what would you have done in that situation if you were Sandra? If you were Sandra, would you have eventually told someone or be like, "Oh, sorry, Krista"?
No, I mean, it's funny that she just accidentally dumps the fish and just deflects the blame on Krista and just doesn't say anything, so Krista gets all the blame. I also just forget that the episode that is like the Fair Play Graham alive, but the fish thing happens and you think Krista gets booted that episode, but no, it's Tawana, and Krista goes the next episode. So like, I think
that's Krista's hair this season, because she had like 5 different hairstyles at any point while we were here.
We had like a space fun thing.
She had that, and when she got voted out, she had like braids at one point. John, what would you have done?
Honestly, I do exactly what Sandra does here. And maybe not the, I dropped this, time to immediately get in an argument so everyone can't blame me for it. But as soon as everyone starts blaming Krista, it's like, you know what? I'm getting off scot-free on this one, and I'm going to let it be. Sorry. I think that's just the way to go.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament. And whenever I look for reasons why Sandra was on the villains tribe for Heroes versus Villains, I always go back to that scene in particular of she threw her best friend out there under the bus and didn't defend her because it would not have been beneficial to her game. And she owns up. She doesn't own up to that at Final Tribal, but she owns up to like, yeah, as long as it wasn't me, I didn't give a shit who I was voting out, like whether I was close with them or not. And I think that strategy, I mean, that's when you think Sandra, that is the strategy you think about. And I feel like because of who she was in the season, that could come off as villainous. And I think they were also just grasping at straws for the female villains on that 100%. Season. But that's, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. Was Sandra because I actually have an opinion on who the actual villain was this season. Was Sandra an actual villain here? Both of y'all can answer.
I mean, I think like definitely putting blame on your closest ally and saying nothing, it could definitely be seen as villainous, and she got into a ton of fights. I mean, she's literally yelling at Fair Play at least twice in the season, famously, saying I can get loud too, and then right
now.
And then immediately after Rupert gets voted out, where's that snake mother effer, John? Like,
Yeah.
it just, she was very lippy and she did not take crap from anybody. So, like, I can definitely see how that can be seen as a villain.
John?
I think what it comes down to is we're still in an era of Survivor where loyalty is pushed so hard. And it's what a lot of people give high merits to their games for. And Sandra's really the first person we have ever seen not to have loyalty in the game. Sandra is the first person who's like, oh, you want to vote out my closest ally? Sure. And like that's the premise of her entire final tribal council is I made myself available so that when people wanted to do something, I was there to do it. No questions asked. As long as it wasn't me, right? And because of that, I do think that's kind of villainous in this era. Do we view that as villainous now, 20 years later? No. That's playing the game of Survivor. However, back then, we have tribal councils where we have people grandstanding just because someone decided, you know what, I'm not going to vote with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to that to answer this question. Yeah, Dara, she was purple, but she was still visible enough. I think because she made Final Four, like we always knew she was there, but like I feel like Michelle, even though she only got like 4 episodes, I feel like Michelle was way more purple because I don't think she gets a confessional in the first couple of episodes. But there's fine. I have my thoughts. So my villain, hot take, is Andrew Savage, and I think because of the way that he portrays himself here, how he's portrayed, and the fact that it almost comes off as holier than thou. Like Skinny Ryan doesn't do this, and Lil, and I'm going to tell Lil, and Lil, I'm going to tell you if we vote you out, and then he's when they don't, and he's upset that she comes back, and then still tries to get her to vote with them anyway, and is annoyed when she votes him out again, or when she votes him out. It's like, yeah, dude, what do you think was going to happen? The fact that you're keeping Austin around, even though this man is begging to leave, and we're going to get to that, and you're sitting there saying, oh no, Austin, he didn't actually want to quit. He was thinking about it, but like he didn't mean it. It's like, no, he meant it, Andrew Savage. And I think that out of everybody else that's come back from the season, which is what, 2 other people, he was the one that from A to B in my head didn't change at all. Player wise. And what are y'all's thoughts?
I think the thing with Savage, and then because I agree. I do think he's a villain, and a part of that is because we, as an audience, are viewing an edit that's clearly showing the Drakes as the heroes in this situation. Not even just the fact that they aren't the tribe named after the pirate that burned down Panama City, right? But even then, Savage is coming off as this very strong, macho leader who is kind of leading this like boys club, similar to what Rupert's complaining about on the Drake tribe. And he does it in a way where he never acknowledges the faults of anything. And I think the prime example is when Fairplay goes and loots Morgan and is like, oh, well, actually it was 7 because we threw that challenge. And Andrew just like doesn't have, like, can't take it at all. And doesn't,
the little bastard,
walk away with it. It's like, no, he's just saying that. And it's like, he literally moved people away from your people, and their 2 strongest tribe members were sitting on a boat. You can't look at this challenge and say it wasn't thrown, Andrew. But you know what? Instead, he has to go off and be like, no, my ego is stronger than that. And then even when we get to the Outcast twist, and someone's coming back, and he makes the correct assessment of, we have to vote out whoever comes back right away. Oh, wait, we can't. That's bogus. It still feels so just targeted when Lil joins the tribe again.
Yeah. Jake?
Well, so I think Savage's fatal flaw is absolutely he couldn't adapt to the Outcasts coming back in, because he literally ostracizes Lil right off the bat again, and so it's no mystery that she's going to vote him out. I will say one of the good things for Savage was winning that like last challenge before the Outcast twist, like the lift holding weight on your shoulders. I will give him credit for that because he had the willpower to really carry Morgan there. But like I agree with that. Like he's definitely holier than thou type of character. We see it again in Second Chances. Like Savage is just interesting to me. I think he's a fun character to have on this season. Him calling Fair Play a pissant or like Little John to like belittle him, like it's really, really funny.
I love this comment because I just talked about it 4 days ago, how I'm not the biggest Lex fan. And it's the same thing where it's just like Lex just came off so holier than thou during Africa, and it gets way worse in All Stars. And you know, we get Savage 1.0 here, and we get Savage 2.0 in Cambodia, and it's like, yeah, it's the same thing. You know, you only want strong men, and you like anyone else is not worthy of being around Andrew Savage, former rugby player, and all this other stuff. Like it's only people that are, you know, you have to fit this mold, and if you don't, then you gotta go. I mean, and that is to say that I don't mind Andrew Savage. Like I do think that, you know, he had his place in this season. I do think that of the first 7 merge boots, I would put him up there, obviously with Rob, and yeah, probably just I would put him and Rob up there. Yep. And John, no, not John Carroll. John Carroll was same season, and he was nice. Anyway, I put up there with Rob as far as merge boots that, you know, were entertaining and didn't outstay their welcome.
Yeah.
Someone that I felt did not outstay their welcome, because I did enjoy her for the most part, was Lil. Now, the last 2 times that I have watched this season, I have really felt for it's almost the Monica Culpepper effect, where watching her final tribal, it's like, no, I get it. You know, people are putting all this stuff on her because she's wearing this Boy Scout uniform. And yes, she's a crier and all that, and that would have been hard to live with. But I think that at the end of the day, people just kept looking at this this Boy Scout uniform and just being like, oh yeah, what happened to this, that, and the other? Even though everyone else is playing the same way, Lil has to be different because she's, you know, of how she's dressed. Jake, do you think it was fair? I assume no, but maybe you have a different. Do you think it was fair for people to judge her based off of the clothes that she was wearing for the 39 days?
No, I mean, I think it was definitely weird. Like, Rhino is literally like, I wouldn't, you know, Lil sucks because she was wearing this Boy Scout uniform, basically, is what he's saying. I just found that odd because, I mean, they abandoned them with the clothes on their backs. Like, she didn't really have a choice in this situation, thought they were taking press photos, and just, I mean, I guess to a press photo, I guess, you know, you're wearing her Scout uniform. I guess it's a choice, but you know, I don't think that's fair. I did want to point out a couple Lil moments that are hilarious. Real quick. The first one being that the reason Lil was voted back in from the Outcast twist was because Nicole and Michelle wanted her off the pre-jury trip.
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah. And then my other favorite moment is when Fairplay and Lil go on the yacht reward at the Rupert boot episode, and you know, and Lil's like, I'm such a bitch, and John's like, thank God, and she's like, don't say that about God, and she just immediately starts sobbing.
Poor Lil. John, what did you think of Lil as a character? You know, not, you know, we won't talk about the final tribal yet, but like Lil as a character, do you think you would have been able to live with her and everything that? Yeah,
Lil's just the type of person. Like, I think the big thing with Lil is you always know exactly what you're getting with Lil. And it's very clear based on like comments made at Final Tribal Council that she was always, you know, quoting the Boy Scouts code and everything like that. So is it unfair that she's judged based on the fact that she has this uniform? She's also digging into the fact that she has this uniform and using it as a game strategy. So no, it's not unfair. This is how she's presenting herself to the players in the game. And is she entertaining? she definitely overstays her welcome a little bit. It's good that we have a couple episodes reprieve from Lil at the beginning of the season, and then we get her again. She gets quite emotional towards the end of the season, but at the same time, like, I still think that's kind of embodying the way that some people were still approaching this game back in 2003, where there was this actual inner turmoil of the people's own morale and their own morals that they are taking into this game and whether or not they can go against it. And I think Lil proves that anyone, even the most righteous person out there, is capable of putting things aside because this is a game. And I really respect that, in all honesty. I respected Lil's gameplay a lot more on this watch because she's essentially did the exact same thing Sandra did. But at the same time, it's just like not coping with it as well as Sandra is.
Yeah, I agree. And watching the final, and she's just like, yeah, I realized at the Rupert vote, this is how the game is played, and I have to do this. And it gave almost Nalia vibes, where it's like I started playing the game on day 24 and all this. But like I feel like with Lil, I do agree with you. As I was watching it this time, I'm like, okay, I wonder what would have happened if she hadn't been voted out and actually still made the final two.
Mm-hmm.
Would she have gotten more votes? Were people just voting against her because she had been voted out of the game? And I do think that Sandra still wins. Like, I don't think that changes anything. But I do feel like Lil almost needed that in this game to continue that story to the Rupert vote until the end of the game, where it's like, yeah, everyone wanted to work with me until they didn't. And these people were trying to get rid of me. So I dealt with that, how I felt I should. And it definitely felt like some of these people were at least a tad annoyed that she did do that because of what you said, John, of like continuing to preach one thing. I know this is the second day in a row that I brought this person up, but it's almost the Mike Turner effect of you sit there and you say, I'm loyal and it's this, that, and the other, and I'm a respectable person, all that. And then you have a moment where people call you out and say, no, you're not. And it's all right, but you need to admit to it before. Yeah, Jake. But you need to admit to it before we all decide not to vote for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that reminds me. I mean, for Australian Survivor in season 1 of that, Lee Carseldine did the same thing of like he wouldn't own up to like doing what he did in the game, and he had like the whole honor, integrity, and like the entire jury called him out on it. And then like he lost to Christy, who had a much better final tribal. So like it's a very similar situation to this too.
Yeah, and I felt bad for her this time around because she didn't do anything wrong or to screw the Morgan tribe. Yeah, she lost the hooks, but whatever. She didn't do anything to screw the Morgan tribe, and she still was the third boot from that tribe, so she still was able to survive. When in other situations, she may have been the first as the older woman. She was able to gain the votes. However, she gained the votes to get back in the game. Whatever. She gained the votes to get back in the game. She comes back. She's able to make alliances with people and be in the majority for a lot of the time. And I do respect her gameplay. And I know someone said it earlier, but she is a very underrated finalist. Underrated player, whatever, but underrated finalist because I do think that she played the game well once she actually started. So strategically, socially, I think she was always doing well. But final tribal, I think that she did very well, and I sat there this time like, she's making a lot of good points. The fact that she dropped the bullshit bomb, and I was like, oh, see, she's breaking character. Like she understands what this is. I think that she always loses. But I don't think that's a knock on her. I think that is more of a testament to our eventual winner, Sandra. So going to Sandra, she wins again in a couple of weeks. Of her 2 wins, and Jake, I'm not going to ask you this because we're going to have you back for Heroes versus Villains. John, of her 2 wins, which one do you think? I'm not going to say dominant because I think her most dominant game is probably Game Changers. But which one do you think? Which one do you put more, I guess, stock in, or whatever the question would be?
I think it's still probably Heroes versus Villains because they let her do this same thing again. And that's really what it comes down to. It's like her game's there. She shows you how to play. And even on her other returning seasons, even on Game Changers and Winners at War, even on Australian Survivor, she plays the same game every single time.
Mhm.
But Heroes vs. Villains, they just like don't acknowledge it for some reason. The hubris, I guess, of being an all returning season, which puts it a little bit further ahead. But this one is still quite an impressive win because I can't believe I'm about to do this. The editors kind of do a good job at showing us Sandra the entire season. And they do it in a way where they give us those confrontations that she has with Fairplay. They give us her relationship with Rupert and with Krista, and we understand her role in everything. But we also see her having these conversations where it shows her strategic mind and balances it with the social gameplay. And what's impressive with this is she gets to a point where she is considered so much of a non-threat that she is the most threatening person in this entire game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, one of y'all brought it up, and I mean, it's knowledge. The fact that she was one vote away from playing a perfect game, like our first perfect game. And I figured that this time around I would figure out why Tawana voted for Lil. It does seem like she actually put a lot of thought into the vote. It didn't seem like it was sour grapes at all. It just kind of seemed like, yeah, I feel like Lil deserves to win the situation. So I won't say that, she was bitter or anything like that. But I do think that, yeah, the fact that Sandra was never really on anyone's radar past, if Drake had gone first, I think maybe, but they didn't. And she was able to get in with the folks. And it's the same, yeah, like you said, the same thing in Heroes vs. Villains, where because, after Randy goes, like the villains kind of go on a winning streak. And she can get in with folks that will keep her good. And once the merge happens, we're off to the races. And that's why I always say the Game Changers is her best game, because she's in full control in the pre-merge of Game Changers. And, I don't believe in swap screwed necessarily, but like it happened. She did. It happened. But I do feel like if she had made the merge in that season, people would have left her alone again because she would have just chilled. Austin. We're going to segue from the winner to Austin. Austin, I know as a kid, and the first couple times I rewatched it later on, it's like, I can't believe he quit. I can't believe he quit. Obviously, doing research, and it's like, okay, yeah, this guy was dying.
Yes.
Having said that, I still think I was annoyed watching him this time around, only because he had been saying this for so long and still let Skinny Ryan and Lil get voted out. If you want to leave that badly, let these people stay and don't wait until, this point. Like especially if you're vocalizing it this much. And I know it's edited, but like we're seeing it a lot. And I think that might just be production saying, oh no, yeah, this guy's just a quitter. What were y'all thoughts on Austin? And Jake, we'll go with you.
Yeah, so I mean, he had the staph infections, as you alluded to. So like it was kind of a different situation than what was actually shown on TV. I mean, the thing that'll stand out to me is because Austin was the first quitter in Survivor history, how Jeff just really wanted to make an example out of Austin. Jeff was so mad. Like, I mean, going to, lay his torch down. Austin's not even part of the rites of passage, technically. And so, like, Jeff just wants nothing to do with Austin. So that's very clear in the season and with how the quit plays out.
John?
I think it is a bit overdone based on it being the first quit and people wanting to give it a higher and production just really wanting to make an example of him, unfortunately. I think that when you hear how, like, the multiple staph infections he had and everything he was going through, I kind of blame production for not making the medical poll instead.
Yeah.
And it is unfair. It's not great to see him struggle through everything for so long, because I do always forget that the quit talk starts in like episode 2. It feels a little more joking at that point, but you start seeing when it becomes serious. I think he's a bit too maligned just for being the first quit, but at the same time, this is a season that is often considered one of the best seasons of Survivor ever, and it has the first quit in it. What does that tell you about his impact on the game, right? Like, despite, I even look back at as recently as season 45, which has 2 quits in it, and people love that season, right? It's so interesting to see that quits don't necessarily make a season bad. Like, Kage-yan, another season that's often considered one of the best of all times, has a quit in it.
David versus Goliath has a quit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there are all these like revered seasons have quits, and Austin just gets the unfortunate title of being the first one.
The first. Yeah. And I want to touch on this comment because I want to go off of what you said, but I want to touch on this comment first. Do we agree with this or no?
No.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
I want to ask your all's opinion. I just want to ask your all's opinion.
I have this in my top 3 seasons of all time.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, last time I did this, I think I had it in my top 6. I don't think that's going to change this time around. I'll give you my score as we get closer to the end of this. But I want to go off of what John just said, because we have had seasons where people have returned, and we've had one season where someone has returned and won. And every time I watch Pearl Islands, I don't forget about the Outcast twist, but I think at a certain point I do forget as I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it happens, it's like, oh yeah, the Outcast twist happens. And oh yeah, there's this whole thing with the treasure and they have to find the treasure. And there's a lot of things that happen in this season that on a lesser season would probably, bring it down, because no one's going to care about the treasure, which we still don't care about the treasure, or everyone's going to hate this twist because what if somebody comes back and wins? But I don't feel like if Burton or Lil had won the season that people would treat it like Chris Underwood. And I've said the same thing about South Pacific with Ozzy, and I've said the same thing about Blood versus Water with Tina, where I don't feel like people would have treated them the same way that they treat Chris. Mm-hmm. And I know this is jumping the gun by like a month and a half, but Lil or Burton win, how are y'all feeling?
I think if Burton wins, I think I would still think of the season very highly. I mean, I think for Burton, because of how hard he plays throughout the season, even when he comes back, and how good he is at the challenges, I and everything, I'd probably say still would go pretty high. Lil winning, I mean, she was in the majority of the entire post-merge, so I got to give her credit for that. I just, with, everything that happened throughout the season with her, I just don't know if I don't know if it would tank the season necessarily, but I definitely wasn't yearning for a Lil win by any means.
Anyone else was?
I think there are a lot of seasons where the winner helps make the season. You see the journey of the winner, and that's really important to it. I don't think Pearl Islands is one of those seasons. Because despite the fact that this is our first coming of Sandra and everything, and it is impressive because she goes on to be the first 2-time winner of the game and one of the best players to ever play it. But is that what makes Pearl Islands a good season? I don't think so. I don't think Sandra's win is what makes it a good season. And should someone come back from the Outcast twist, I say the exact same thing about Edge of Extinction. You have to play the game that's in front of you.
Play the game.
If that's the rules of the game, sorry, audience. You have to adapt to it. And they did. Burton and Lil, the fact that Burton and Lil get anywhere near the end when Savage literally says we have to vote them out right away, it's wild. It just shouldn't have happened in the first place, but it did. And that's part of what makes Pearl Island such an exciting season.
Yeah.
I don't... Oh, go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, I mean, the Outcast twist for me is the best use of people returning into the game after having been voted out. I think by far it makes the season so much better to have Lil and Burton come back into it.
John, I
Not to
was
mention,
surprised.
sorry, I'm just gonna cut in one thing. And not to
Okay.
mention, it goes exactly the way production wants it to. Like,
Yes.
best possible solution that two of them come back.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've never heard rigged called in that situation. I hear rigged called all the time with this show, and I've never heard it called there. And I don't think it was, but like I'm surprised that no one's ever called it that. John, I was surprised you didn't wear your Die Jerks buff.
It's sitting right here.
It's right there.
It's sitting right here. But,
Oh my god.
this is from the game
John has
that,
a Die Jerks
that
buff.
Andrew and I played together. Yeah,
That's amazing.
So yeah, I man, my voice actually might be starting to go. This is cool. 7 days into this. So yeah, the Outcast Swiss. Yeah, in that moment, and every time that I watch the season, it's like, yeah, I can't believe they actually pulled this off. And it works. And I feel like that is something that Blood versus Water did well. I feel like every time I watch Edge of Extinction, I feel more and more just like, yeah, this is cool. The fact that the way they introduce it back into the game. I don't mind people coming back in. I understand that they had their chance, they got voted out. I get it. But like you said, and I feel like a lot of people are starting to get on board with is if it's a part of the game dynamic in that season, we got to go with it. We can't. If I were to go out there and there was a dynamic where something like that happened, I'm not going to bitch about it, because especially if it helps me out. If I get back into the game and all of a sudden I can win only playing 8 days and living on the edge and dying out there, but if and you tell me I'm still going to win $1 million, all right, cool, yeah, people. You can have your little rankings and you can put me at last place all you want. I still won. And guess what? I still have Chris Underwood at the bottom of my rankings, but it doesn't matter. No one gives a shit because he still won the game. And I saw someone earlier say, yeah, he went ahead and killed it on the challenge. And yeah, he did. We're not talking about anything. We're talking about Pearl Islands. We're going into All-Stars. And we're getting to the point of this episode where we're talking about returnees. And so the first question is, are the three?
Four. It's Savage, Fairplay, Sandra, and Rupert.
Fair Play. Forgot about Fair Play. Yeah. The four players that we get to come back. Once again, keeping in mind that Australia has 8 people that come back from that season. Do we think, saying that Pearl Islands probably has a better cast, do we think that right 4, and should they have been the only 4?
I mean, I'd be fine seeing Burton back. I mean, like, technically he got his second chance in the season, but I guess technically I'd like to get a second chance at a full season as well.
John?
I think Burton's the clear choice here at this point, and like the clear missing piece for a returning player. I don't think anyone else necessarily sticks out well enough now that after Savage comes back in second chances. I don't think anyone else really from the season sticks out that much to be someone to come back. But I also understand the 4 that they brought back. Like, one's the winner. Makes sense to bring winners back. And 2 of them were the biggest characters on the season.
Right.
Yeah. And the other one's Andrew Savage, who we voted.
That was a fan vote. The fans made that happen.
Yeah, who we voted in. So I do agree with you that Burton would be a very clear person that I was surprised hadn't come back. I would also say that I feel like, especially in the earlier returnee seasons, I would not have hated seeing Lil come back. And I would say, like, I think a Lil 2.0 season in the early seasons could have been fun. But I could say that with a lot of people in this season. But Lil, for some reason, just this time around, I just really enjoyed watching her story arc. Krista, yeah, I mean, I liked Krista. Someone referred to her as Big Bird.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I lost it. I think, like I said earlier, the fact that Dara and Tawano were a very surprising duo.
Mhm.
Being Dara's from Mississippi and said a few things before the season started. I enjoyed them as a duo. I enjoyed Krista and Sandra as a duo. I enjoyed them with Rupert. And I do feel like the four that we have gotten back, like we said yesterday, you get the best character, you get the winner maybe, and you get maybe the best strategist. And I think all of those have come back at one point or another. On the other side of this, here's part of the episode where I say, I don't think that anyone pre-season 33 is going to be on season 50. But if there were, and we can have anyone back, whether they've come back already or not, are you guys dying to see anyone else come back for a second, third, fourth, or fifth time? In Rupert's case, are we dying to see any of them come
In
back?
Sandra's case too.
In Sandra's case too.
Yeah.
If we count Australian Survivor, it's her 6th time.
It's their 6th time.
I
Alan Rattles is their 7th time. What's up, Jake?
I would count Australia.
You would count Australia? Okay. So is there anyone that we are just like, we have to have them for 50?
I would really like Burden for 50. I think Burden is the one person on the cast. I think we've seen enough Sandra at this point. We've definitely seen more than enough Rupert at this point. We're not going to see Fair Play on 50 because I would be shocked if we don't see him in Australia next year.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think
I think we'll get him on our screens. It's just a question of like, which of these seasons is he on?
Yeah. Again, Burton, but like, I don't know. I mean, if Fairplay is going to get on Australian Survivor again, I mean, I can't really think of anybody else unless they have a theme that they're just going to throw Rupert into, so Rupert can just be Rupert and fit the theme. I don't know. It'd be kind of funny just to, because at least we're going to get something where either we're going to love something that Rupert's doing or we're probably going to roll our eyes.
And that's the thing about Australian Survivor is I don't know how the Australian fans look at American Survivor. Like, do they watch all the seasons or do they just know the big names? Because if they just know the big names, I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, I don't think Rupert's going out there, but like,
yeah,
a Rupert being out there wouldn't be the craziest thing because he is one of the people that, go above the show. Like, that's someone that even if you don't watch Survivor, you probably know Rupert, you probably know Fair Play, Boston Rob, and a few others. For me, it would be Burton. If they were to do people from Pearl Islands, I would say probably Burton. I swear on everything that is good, if they bring back Rupert again, I'll lose it in a bad way. So I'm going to get to this question in a second. Overall, I'm giving Pearl Islands a 4.75 out of 5, which would be my highest so far of the first 7 seasons. Like I said, if this is the first, in my opinion, the first great season of the first 7. I think that they nailed it as far as cast, location. The winner is great. I think the runner-up is great. Great characters, and it's the best form of Rupert. Now, my 7. So let's go to my notes app that I've been keeping everything on this through this journey. No, that's the schedule. And so it would be Thailand in last, obviously, Australian Outback, Africa, Marquesas, Amazon, Borneo, Pearl Islands. How are we feeling about that?
You're a lot higher on Borneo than I am, but other than that, it's almost identical.
I would throw Borneo probably to number 4, but otherwise, and like switch that in Marquesas, but I think that's where my rank. No, Amazon's 2, Marquesas 3, and then Pearl Islands is definitely number 1 of the first 7. But
yeah, and then I go right into All Stars right after we go off of this. So like I'm hoping that I can just get to the Jenna episode tonight so I can go to bed depressed. and wake up to the Sue stuff so I can wake up depressed. Yeah, it's not going to be a fun day. But then I have Vanuatu on Monday, so I'm really excited for that. We will be having John back. When's the next time you're coming back? Kagayan. And Jake is Heroes vs. Villains.
Yep.
So we'll be having both of them back. Make sure to subscribe to both Tribe of Nerds and the Specialists. I will have a link to both and all the stuff that I tag. Thank you both so much for coming on. We didn't break the Marquesas record. The goal is to break the Marquesas record as far as time at a certain point. But thank you guys both so much. Did you guys want to say anything else about Pearl Islands before we bounce?
Jake, if you have something, go ahead. I have a little bit of spiel.
Well, if Rupert isn't on season 50, we can quote him saying "so much for my dreams."
Absolutely. I think the thing that Pearl Islands does that really makes it stand out, even amongst 46 seasons of Survivor, let alone the first 7, this is the best implementation of a theme we have ever had in Survivor. Yes, it's location-based, and yes, we have location-based themes in seasons like China and Gabon and things like that. This is the season that integrates a theme the absolute best. It made it a spectacle. It made it so fun to watch. Again, like the first 15 minutes of this season is probably the height of reality television. It sets the tone for the entire season to come. It made me fall in love with Survivor. And the fact that the world believed Rupert was a hero after seeing him go off on Johnny Fairplay is wild.
We didn't even touch on that. But there is one thing that we did forget to touch on, and that's the coattails thing that you asked me to bring up, and I didn't. Coattails.
There is so much discussion of riding coattails in this season. I don't think anyone on this cast knows what riding coattails is. It sounds like they're like, oh, you made an alliance with someone who was stronger than you, so therefore you're clearly riding coattails. And I'm so glad it gets brought up at Final Tribal Council, and Sandra's just like, no? What are you talking about? That's just not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Rupert goes home fairly early in the merge, and Sandra still makes it to the end. And Krista still makes it pretty far as well. Like, she makes one more vote. I don't think that anyone was really riding it. Even Lil wasn't riding coattails. She was just firmly with the people that she was working with until she wasn't. I don't think there was any coattail riding, and it did annoy me hearing that this time, and it stuck in my brain, and I don't know why I had to wait till the end of this to bring it up again. But it's very similar to when Alex brought up during Amazon. Oh yeah, I don't want to hear honor and integrity anymore. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to hear coattails anymore because it's not a thing. It's not a thing. And especially it's not a thing if you get to the end and win. You know, like you can ride all the coattails you want as long as you win. Who gives a shit? Wait, what? What was this in reference to? They're talking about Iowa.
They're talking about other seasons.
They're talking about Iowa. Okay, I thought we were talking about Sandra, and I'm like, no, I think Sandra would probably say yes again.
I think Sandra will say yes anytime they ask her to. She literally had a giant head made of her on the show. She'll come back.
All right, so thank you both. Thank you everyone in the chat as always. Look forward to watching my All Stars review tomorrow night. Probably around 9:30, depending on how much I can get out of the way today. Also, I realized I say see you on the other side. It's because of Burton's vote out. The first vote out, he says, I'll see you guys on the other side. I know that's like a phrase that people just say, but like watching it today, I'm like, nope, that's why I say it. So we will see you all on the other side.